Number 4 off the optimization worksheet. A fisheries biologist is stocking fish in a lake. She knows when that there are N fish per unit in the water, the average weight of each fish will be this. So the weight of the fish depends on how many fish are in the water. I guess that makes sense. If you dump too many fish in, they eat up all the resources and they're not as big as they otherwise would be. Measured in grams, what is the value of N that will maximize the total fish weight? So this W up here was the average weight. We want to maximize the total weight of the fish in the pond, right? So if we put one fish in there, he's going to be a big fat fish, but it's only one of them. If we put 1,000,000 fish in there, well, there'll be 1,000,000 fish, but they're all going to be scrawny because there are not enough resources. So like, what's the happy medium where the total weight is maximized? So I'll just call it total weight. And they even give me a hint here, the number of fish. And in this problem, what's the number of fish? N. So N times the average weight of the fish. Well, they gave me that. That's 500 minus 2N. Let's do algebra first. So the total weight is 500N minus 2N squared. That's what we want to maximize. So T prime would be 500 minus 4N. We set that equal to 0. N would be 500 divided by 4, 125. So we think that's our answer. But we need a second derivative to sort of verify that. 500 minus, whoops, second derivative, so I better start at the first derivative. Second derivative would be negative 4. Oh, I like that as a second derivative. So that means we're concave down, and N equals 125 is a max. Then make sure, reread the question, make sure you answered the right question, because they could have asked, well, what is the average weight of the fish? Or what's N? Or what's the total weight? But the question they ask is, what is the value of N? Well, N is 125. Number 9. Normally, a pear tree will produce 30 bushels of pears per tree when 20 or fewer pear trees are planted per acre. However, for each additional pear tree planted above 20 trees, the yield per tree will fall by 1 bushel per tree. Why? Well, we don't really care about why, but I assume it's kind of like the fish problem we just looked at. It's a matter of resources, right? If you jam-pack your 1 acre with 1,000,000 trees, well, they don't have enough resources to grow, so their yield goes down. How many trees should be planted to maximize the total yield? So total yield would be the number of trees times the bushels per tree. So yeah, the more trees the better, but the more bushels the better. But those two are inversely related, right? The more trees we plant, the less pears we get. So we got to figure out where's the sweet spot of getting the most total bushels of pears out. So the number of trees, let's see. Well, it starts at 20, and we'd like to add some trees to that. We don't know how many trees, but we'd like to add some trees because more trees means more pears, generally. The bushels per tree is normally 30, But for each additional tree, so X was the number of additional trees, number of extra trees, is what X represents. So 20 plus X is our new number of trees. The bushels, though, are going down. 1 per tree. So for each tree we plant, we lose a bushel on each tree. So we got to figure out, well, what's the best number of trees to plant here? So number of trees is 20 plus X. Bushels of trees is 30 minus X. Just shorten that to Y for yield. That's what we want to maximize. And again, we have this algebra versus calculus question, but I think algebra first here. 600 plus 30x minus 20x would be plus 10x minus x squared. So that's our yield in terms of the number of extra trees we plant. A little side note here. What's the shape of that graph? Parabola. Is it pointed up or pointed down? Down. So that also sort of tells me that there's going to be some maximum spot where I get the most yield. All right, y prime would be 10 minus 2x. Set that equal to 0. X equals 5. Pretty sure that's a max because a parabola only has a max, but let's take a second derivative to verify that. Second derivative is negative 2. That means we're concave down. So yeah, x equals 5 is a max. But let's go back and answer the right question. How many trees should be planted per acre to maximize the total yield? So how many trees should we plant? 25. 5 extra ones, but that wasn't the question. The question was how many trees should we plant? Well, 25 trees. So always when you finish your calculus, make sure you go back and read the question, because there's always 3 or 4 different ways we could ask, 3 or 4 different things we could ask for. All right, let's do one more, then we'll do the quiz. And by we, I mean you'll do the quiz. I'm not doing the quiz. Number 11. A real estate office handles 50 apartment units. When the rent is $540 per month, all the units are occupied. However, on the average, for each $30 increase in rent, 1 unit becomes vacant. Okay, so this is similar to the fish and similar to the pears. Like, if we increase one thing, it decreases another thing. So where do we want to find the best middle ground here? So when we increase rent by $30, 1 unit becomes available. Each occupied unit requires an average of $36 per month for services and repairs. What rent should be charged to realize the most profit? So the profit would be rented units times their what they charge for rent. But this one has this extra thing in there that each occupied unit costs $36, so that's going to take away from our profit. It costs $36 for services and repairs for each rented unit. So not for all of them, right? If they're not being rented, there's no need to repair anything. So let's see, the units. We think there's 50, or it starts at 50, and rent starts at $540. But if we increase rent by $30, but I'm not just going to do that once, I may do that a couple times, 3 or 4 times, right? The more you charge, the more money you make. Except that the more you charge, the less tenants you have. So that's the trick. each $30 increase means we lose a tenant. So 50 minus X is how many tenants we'll have. So we're losing tenants, but we're charging them more. So where is this balance going to come in? So the rented units is 50 minus X. The rent is 540 plus 30X. And then it also costs $36 per rented unit, but that was 50 minus X. Grabbing a calculator for this one, because I don't know 50 times 540 off the top of my head. 27,000. 30 times 50 minus 540, so doing the middle terms at the same time, would be plus 960x minus 30x squared minus 36 times 50 plus 36x. So this one had this extra stuff on about having an extra cost to consider for each apartment that's rented. So let's see here, negative 30x squared. 36 and 960 would be plus 996x. And then 27,000 minus 1,800. 25,200. I guess the good news is when we take a derivative, that number won't matter. So even if we mess it up, we'd be okay. So there's my profit. So I'll take a derivative of that. Negative 60x plus 996. Set it equal to 0. Oh, this is a little bit weird here. I get x equals 16.6. But for this particular problem, I can't rent out a 0.6 of an apartment, right? So I think I just need to check. I'm guessing it's going to be 17, but because the relationship isn't linear, I don't know which is going to be better, 16 or 17. I'm thinking it's 17 because it would round to 17. But this isn't a linear thing, so because it's a squared thing, who knows? So I need to check 16 and 17 to figure out which one gives me the most profit. So I could go into, I guess this one would be the easiest one, and find negative 30 times 16 squared plus 996 times 16. I guess if I was really thinking, I could leave off the 25,000 because that's going to be the same for both, but if I'm just comparing them. So the profit with 16, if x is 16, is 33,456. For 17, see that you can do second entry, and it brings up the last thing, and then you can just go change what you need to change. Negative 30x squared plus 996. Okay. $33,462. So not by much, but by a little bit. We should pick 17. Although, now we need to go back and answer the right question. What rent should be charged to realize the most profit? Well, if x is 17, rent would be 540 plus 30 times 17, which is 1050. Maximums and minimums. I do want to say something about the quiz before you start it and put this on camera so that our friends at home will see this. It depends on which version you have, so it's not necessarily number 2. But it says your company produces certain gadgets at a price of $5 each. It would really make more sense if it said a cost of $5 each. So it costs the company $5 to make each of these gadgets or gizmos or whatever they're making. That'll make life a little bit easier for you to understand that question.